Welcome to Native Yoga Toddcast. So happy you are here. My goal with this channel is to bring inspirational speakers to the mic in the field of yoga, massage, bodywork, and beyond. Follow us at Native Yoga and check us out at nativeyogacenter.com. All right, let's begin. Hello and welcome to Native Yoga Toddcast. I'm Todd McLaughlin, and this show is a space for exploring yoga as a lived practice, not just a theoretical one, and one that supports clarity, inquiry, and connection both on the mat and off the mat. And today I am honored to be joined by Robert Moses, a teacher of yoga and Advaita Vedanta with more than 5 decades of study and teaching experience. Robert is also a co-publisher of Namarupa, Categories of Indian Thought. And in this conversation, we explore the foundational principles of Advaita Vedanta, including non-duality, self-inquiry, ignorance, liberation, and how these teachings can help us better understand the nature of self and reality. Visit Robert on his website, namarupa.org. The link is in the description. Send a comment. Let us know what you think. I really hope you feel as inspired by the calm nature that Robert delivers here and the clarity from with which he speaks. All right, on that note, let's go ahead and jump in. I'm really excited to be here with Robert Moses. Robert, thank you so much for taking time out of your day today. How are you feeling?
Great. Thanks for having me, Todd.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate the work you do in the realm of yoga philosophy and teaching. I saw that you teach with Eddie Stern, and your website is namarupa.org. Am I right? It is.
Correct.
Good. Namarupa.org. Can, you spent decades studying and teaching Vedanta. How did Advaita Vedanta first enter your life, and what initially drew you to it?
I guess it was the sense that the universe is vast, and I began to think about the vastness of it, and of course didn't find any answers. But one day, reading a book of Ramana Maharishi, basically the force and truth of his words actually kind of jumped out of the book and hit me and sort of knocked me over backwards. And I understood that the universe as we perceive it is not the whole story. In fact, it might be a kind of misrepresentation of what is. So from there on, I just started reading as much as I could about this particular view of the universe, which is that time and space are illusory, and that the awareness or consciousness of being is all that there is, and that each one of us, although we appear very much to be separate entities, are really only this one vast, timeless, spaceless being or awareness. So this was, of course, something kind of difficult to understand intellectually. So I realized I had to do something about my own perception in order to really grasp that. And that was basically trying to learn to sit still and quieten the ongoing drama inside one's own head so that one could get a deeper perception or an immediate awareness of consciousness.
Nice. How old were you at the time that you read that book by Ramana Maharishi?
Yeah, so I must have been 21 at that time.
Ah, amazing. And where were you born?
I was born in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Wow. Were you in South Africa when you read this book, or had you already started to travel?
Yeah, actually, I was no longer in South Africa. I was traveling. I left South Africa in 1971 and traveling. And so at that particular time that I read that particular book, I was actually living in Israel.
Yes, yes. Amazing. What is your memory or recollection of your experience being in Israel at the time?
Well, at that time, that was 1971. I arrived there and stayed until 1973. So it's a pretty intense place, as we know from all the news. Although my experience of the intensity was more to do with, at that point, I was beginning to look inward rather than outward. And so the experience of the intensity of the juxtaposition of different, people living there, different religions. It's home to Jews, people who follow Islam, Christianity, very major sites. So, and it's also an interface between East and West, side of the Eastern world, and then you've got the Western world. And there's also a bit of desert and landscape like that. So that harsh, sort of stark juxtaposition makes this intense kind of inquiry. And for me, particularly at that time, if I look back, it was sort of the beginning of my inquiry into myself. So that all came together in one place.
Interesting. So in 1971, you were about 21 years old. To what level was the counterculture slash hippie culture prevalent in America, late 60s, early 70s? To what level did that display itself in Israel?
Yeah, so if I step back just a little bit, because I was born in South Africa, so the counterculture, and this is extremely important and great that you raise that question, was leading most young, or not most, many young adults into looking for deeper questions into life. While we're here, it's all just not materialism. There are other reasons for us being alive in our bodies on the planet. So that was actually happening towards the end of my stay, my period of life in South Africa. And I actually had a particular friend who, out of the blue, just for no reason at all, said that religion is the answer. And I still remember that very, very strongly. His word, he had some, influence upon me. So, and I wasn't particularly religious, but those words had some deep meaning. They meant something. So when I traveled with a friend because I was an architect student. And we were, part of the architectural training in South Africa was to travel usually to Europe to study both old and more modern architectural masterpieces as a period of the fourth year of our studies. And during that time, my whole mind was changing. I was waking up very early in the morning and not knowing what to do with myself because my friend slept a little later than I did. And then somebody gave me a book by Swami Shivananda called The Practice of Yoga. And in that book, it said, wake up early and sit and meditate. And it also said, don't smoke, don't eat meat. And these things were just happening to me naturally at the time. I did smoke and I just quit, gave up smoking. I had grown up in South Africa where eating meat's a big part of the culture, but I basically just stopped eating meat. And I found my whole shift of what I was doing in the world changing. And in this book were written things that were just happening to me.
Mm.
like wake up early, sit
Yeah.
still, try to meditate, etc.
Yes. Yes.
So to answer your question, that was all sort of running in tandem with the counterculture of the time, the hippie movement. We were sort of architect students, half hippies.
Yeah.
I was still studying architecture, but we were traveling around in a Volkswagen van
Oh, nice.
in which we lived.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
was the easy way to travel around Europe and study buildings. But I'd wake up early and meditate. And in fact, in one place outside of Paris, we picked up two young Indian medical students who were hitchhiking out of a crowd. At that time, everyone thumbed around. It's not so common today. And there was a crowd, hundreds of people trying to get a ride. And we just stopped and picked up these two young students. And somehow or other, I had a picture of the goddess Lakshmi in the van. I didn't really know who she was. But one student looked at it and said, well, we've been standing here for 8 hours and my goddess just picked us up.
Yeah.
And I noticed he was super relaxed, like really relaxed kind of. I asked him why. He said, well, he does yoga. So I asked him to teach me something. When we stopped in the evening somewhere we would stop somewhere, camp and cook some food and spend the night. He taught me to stand on my head. That's the first asana I learned.
Nice.
But since I'd never done any asana, my body was, a little stiff and trembly and shaky.
Yeah.
But he got a hold of my body, and I just felt his relaxation like flow into my body, and I stood on my head. So all these things were, landing in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. Amazing. I love hearing that. Thank you so much for telling me those stories. I love that. I'm curious, for listeners who are completely new to Vedanta, how would you describe Advaita Vedanta in clear, accessible language?
Yeah. So Advaita Vedanta, the word Vedanta means the end of the Vedas. Anta means end, Veda is Vedas. Vedas are scriptures, but are said to contain basically knowledge of the human being and her place within the universe and what is the universe, which have been passed down in India orally for a long, long time. More recently, of course, written down. Parts of them have been lost. But the Vedanta is supposedly the end of the Vedas. It sums up all the knowledge written in those Vedas and sort of brings it to a conclusion. And then there are different types of Vedanta. And the one that I have a affinity towards is called Advaita, which means non-dual. And then it's usually said as consciousness. But the thing about Advaita Vedanta, different to the other types of Vedantas and other philosophies, is that it is said to be absolutely non-dual. So most of our philosophical viewpoints take for granted that we're here and I'm an individual and you're an individual and there's a universe and perhaps there's a God or something like that, and try to explain the experience of being from that point of view. Advaita says this never ever has taken place. There is no beginning, there is no end, there is no separation, there is no I, there is no you. That is all comes under what they call Maya, or an illusory appearance that causes us to mistake the absolute being, which we individually are, as separate individual entities. And this was summed up by one of the great teachers of Vedanta, Adi Guru Shankaracharya, who said basically that there is only consciousness, that the individual is none other than that consciousness, and that the appearance of the world and its creation, ongoing activity, and its possible dissolution, and that all the separate appearances of names and forms are basically unreal. And so he summed this up in a kind of three-line saying that the world is unreal, the only reality is the supreme consciousness, and that the individual is that supreme consciousness. This is a very tough pill to swallow. I mean, none of us are going to buy that, because we definitely experience a world of ourselves as an individual, and we see, vast space and time out there. We experience things like that. So it's very difficult to have this sense of awareness that I am consciousness.
Yes. Amazing. Is this idea of, do you feel like the non-dual aspect is so hard for us to contemplate, because not only when we look at the world, we see all this dichotomy and polarization, that's basically why it is so difficult for us? Do you feel like because of the, perhaps, like even in a religious sense of growing up believing in good and evil, in a non-dual state, would we be accurate in saying there is no exactly good or evil, that all of it is a manifestation of consciousness?
Yeah, I mean, you hit upon one real difficulty of trying to cognize the reality that all is, when we look around us and we see all the good and bad, the good and evil, and we see the many different types of beings and what's going on in everything, in the natural world and in the human world, it's very difficult to say that this is all just an apparent kind of show or drama, and that intrinsically it is all absolutely, let's say, quote, fine as it is, because we see good and bad, and it's very difficult to try to resolve that. What is that? What is good? What is bad? What is right? What is wrong? And Vedanta says the main reason is because we're looking at everything from the point of view of the sense of individuality. When we have that sense of individuality, then everything is black or white, right or wrong, good or bad. Everything, it has all these counter positions. If we can somehow remove that point of individuality, then we'll just see it as it is.
Yes. Great point. I mean, right away, I think of the idea of like a kind of like a group consciousness, in the sense of, sometimes I've heard people try to explain, like, if there was an alien species or race outside of planet Earth, that there potentially could be this sort of group think or group consciousness where all of them are having the exact same thoughts at the same time, or all of them are having this sort of awareness of we are all kind of the same, experiencing the same. And so then when I look at all the human beings, and this doesn't even, I'm not even including all the animal life and all of the creatures that have eyes and senses, is there some sense that you have that we kind of are one big, large being, so to speak, all viewing the world from our own perspective?
Yeah, I mean, that's a way to attempt to cognize it.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so what we're all doing is we're all looking at everything else through our limited framework, which is our body-mind senses. We're perceiving through those senses, the consciousness, whatever it sees, is a little bit not clear. Even you and I, right at this point, are seeing something slightly different. We're from a different angle, a different perspective. So, I mean, one way that we can, there are two ways that I've always thought about, and often when talking to people who, ask these questions. One way is, what happens when you go to sleep? So we are awake here and we're seeing each other and we're talking to each other. Then we might go to sleep and we might have some dreams, and in the dream state we will have experienced some other kind of reality, sometimes flying, sometimes in a foreign land, sometimes seeing people we know, people we just don't know, or sometimes fantastical experiences. And then we have deep sleep, where there's nobody else, and to all intents and purposes at that time of deep sleep, we are not there either. You can have a very nice bed and you sleep, and you say you have difficulty going to sleep on your very nice bed. So you get down on the hard floor and you fall fast asleep. At that time you're asleep, there's no hard floor. It only appears when you wake up. So the appearance of the world to all of us at all times only appears upon when we have what we call waking state consciousness. Waking state consciousness is not different to dream consciousness, except time and space have differences. And, a dream, you can have a whole lifetime, goes by in a flash. But in the deep sleep, there's no time and there's no place. You only say that you were in that room when you wake up. When you wake up, you say, I was sleeping on the floor. While you were sleeping on the floor, you do not say, I'm sleeping on the floor. You'd be awake at that time. So this is one of the major ways to try to understand the basic non-reality of time and space, is that it's only a particular state of consciousness when the sense of awareness has moved out through the senses and begins to experience objects as separate from myself. That's one way.
Yeah, I like that. That's actually really nice. Thank you.
The other way is to think about containers. So if we have, and I'll take a sip of water here. If we have a container like a glass which has space in it, and then the room around here which is a container which has space in it, we think that the container, the glass, the space here is smaller than the space out here. In actual fact, if I were to pour the water out and break the glass, we'll see that the space is really one. So Advaita Vedanta says that the idea that this is separate to that, or this space is separate to this space, is caused by the temporary container. The space is always one. If we remove the container, then we see that the space is one. So our container is the body-mind. Body-mind makes us think that I am an individual, Robert, and you're Todd, etc. If we were able to remove the container, or the idea that I am that container, we would see that we all are one. You and I are one, identical. So this is another way to look at the sort of non-reality of separation of individuals, space and time, by realizing that we're focused on the container. And this also, by the way, is the cause for lots of problems in the world, because according to our containers, we have different perceptions, and we also have different notions about other people's containers. They're tall, they're short, they're fat, they're thin, they're this and that, etc. So, however, within the one consciousness is not tall, fat, or thin. It's all just consciousness.
Wow. Well, thank you, because the way you're explaining it is very clear and relatable. And I love that analogy with the container. Thank you very much. I especially liked it when you tapped on it and made that nice sound. I'm curious, and then in some respects, if I close my eyes and you had your eyes closed and you're talking in relation to the idea of, I think my container is separate from your container. In a way, it's almost like I'm having a conversation with myself by talking to you. Kind of, sort of, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then if I have a conversation with myself in my own mind, how is that much different from me having a conversation with you? Now, the obvious is obvious, but I'm curious just to hear your thoughts on this idea.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I really hope that you're enjoying this episode, and I just wanted to take a moment to announce a course that I'm really excited to release. It's a free course, and it's called 8 in 8, Learn 8 Limb Yoga in 8 days. My goal is to help coach you along in the Ashtanga yoga practice in a way where we take just the sun salutations, the fundamental asanas, and the final breathing poses, break it down with some philosophy videos as well, explaining the 8 limbs of Ashtanga yoga in a very easy to use, friendly course that is totally free. Click the link below, check it out. Let me know what you think. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, I mean, we actually, I guess, following from what you're saying, we're always just having a conversation with ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I like that. Thank you. I feel much more comfortable. Like if I was a little nervous about talking to you before, I feel more comfortable now because I don't have to be nervous, right? I don't have to be nervous conversing with you because I can just think of you more like myself in a way. So I don't know. I guess that just makes me feel a little more at peace. I wasn't terribly nervous to speak with you because I heard so many great things about you from people. So I knew you were a really nice person based off of their idea. But I don't know. I think about that sometimes. I'm just curious, what are some other thoughts that you have or realizations have you had in this inquiry process in the world of Advaita Vedanta?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I find I have to do is constantly remind myself of this, because of course I live in a world of duality. I'm in a body, and I think I'm Robert, and so on. I have a very nice family, wife and 3 kids, and we have to take care of all our physical needs and so on. But I constantly try to remind myself that I am just consciousness. So one way is to ponder dying. So when you're dying, what really is dying? So I think about that quite a bit. So, and this apparently what Ramana Maharishi did when he was 17 years of age. He was in his uncle's house in a little town in South India, and he thought he was dying. So he lay down on the floor thinking that, if I'm dying, I should lie down. And basically his sense of individuality died, but his body carried on for another more than 60 years. So during that time, he did not have the sense that you and I have of being an individual. So, and there are lots of illustrations of that, so I like to remember those illustrations. Like, for example, when he was a very young kid, he sat in this kind of like small room where you go down some stairs in a temple in South India, during which time he had just come there and he was in the temple grounds. Some other boys were harassing him, so he went and sat in this little room where you can go to today if you like, and go and visit it and sit there, small room. And at that time, when he was found sitting there, scorpions had been biting him, and some mice or rats were nibbling at his legs. And after, later on, he was asked what his experience was, and he said that, well, mice were eating the legs. He didn't say like my legs. Scorpions were stinging the body,
Wow.
the leg.
Wow.
So he didn't have that connection. And then also he used to, later on in this ashram, he would sit in a small little room and people would come and sit there and meditate. And the people that, sort of the management of the small ashram, thought he needed to have a time alone where, he could be by himself. And so they put up a sign, no one's allowed in here between 2 and 4 o'clock, something like that. The next day they found him sitting outside and they said, well, what are you doing? He said, well, there's a sign that says no one is allowed in there between 2 and 4 o'clock.
Yes.
So he didn't go in. So he had, and there are many, 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 many stories of that. But for myself, I've just had very brief, timeless, spaceless experiences when I've understood that I'm not this individual. Not I've understood. Suddenly there was an awareness of being this consciousness. Just awareness, not an individual. Always at that time, the mind comes back to think, well, how can I be like that forever? And always is the question, well, the answer is basically you have to take care of all the unresolved threads of your life. These are your karmas. These have to be taken care of. If they're not taken care of, you cannot be what you are. In other words, we're kind of here in the state of duality to learn lots and lots of lessons and to balance our karmic sheet so that we can be what we really are, which is not an individual. Our karmas are created by the thought that we are an individual, because when we think we're an individual, there are others, and therefore we either treat them well or not, and we'll create a karma which will come back to us. So there's a lot of these karmic threads that are unfinished. And we need to kind of finish or take care of those, without which we cannot be what we are, which is timeless, spaceless, causeless, immaterial, infinite being. So little going on and on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I'm mesmerized right now. I'm curious you mentioned that Advaita Vedanta is a particular philosophical, say, thread of Vedanta. I've had a chance to do a little reading and study on non-dual Shaiva Tantra. So then in this world in this idea of understanding there's multiple non-dual schools, how can we have a lot of differences in something that is saying non-duality? And you know what I mean? Like, and if there is true non-duality, are there any other aspects of non-duality?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, this is a really good question. How can we? But we are living in a world of duality. I am Robert, you are Todd. There's 7 billion people out there, not to mention the infinite number of organisms, trees, plants, planets. I've just been reading about a discovery of a black hole that's speeding through space at 2.2 million miles per second.
Yeah. Like, try to comprehend that. So wait, black holes are flying through space? I was kind
Well,
of
this one escaped. It's called an escaped black hole.
It's an escape black hole. What?
And
Okay, I'll let you continue. Thank you.
well, it's only cognizable by the fact that that it's pushing something in front of it and it's trailing something behind it. Otherwise, you can't see it. But anyways, there's lots of stuff out there, and there's lots of stuff in here. Advaita Vedanta is a philosophical system which says all of that is only caused by, it's only an appearance. And to try to explain the appearance, they say it's caused, that appearance is caused by something which is termed as Maya or illusion, which it itself is illusory. It itself does not exist. So all of that is illusion. So Advaita says, no matter what the vastness of the universe and how many black holes there are and how many microorganisms there are, it's all just a apparent temporary creation of an illusory sense of separation that does not exist anyway. If I were to somehow remove that illusion, I would not have these questions. There would be no separation. There would be no difference. But not everyone buys that. Different people have different experiences. So they try to describe the nature of the universe in a slightly different way, saying that, yes, there is a temporary appearance of illusion, or because you're in your body, you will see things in a particular way. And this gives, these experiences are had by different philosophers or sages, saints, or seers at different times. And then they'll explain what their experience is. And if they're forceful enough about it, it will become another sort of aspect of a philosophical way of trying to explain what we really cannot explain with our minds.
Yeah. Good answer. Great answer. Thank you. In the world of yoga, we hear about renunciation, and there's a storyline that there, at one point in history, perhaps in India, that it was believed to reach the highest state of self-realization would be to renounce the world or take up the vow of a monk or a nun and renounce. And then we have this idea of that yoga is possible as a householder. And in the realm of the teachings of Ramana Maharishi, would we see him as a renunciate or as a householder, or is even all that just an illusion in the big picture? Is this idea that we even you could be a renunciate and I can be a householder, and that we are two different things? I guess I'm understanding what you're saying then from the non-dual perspective. These are just different ways of us seeing differences between us, as opposed to embracing the Advaita understanding that, well, even if it appears that you're a renunciate and it appears that I'm a householder, in actuality, we're the same.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, the different paths, renunciate or householder, are really according to the particular individual's karmic path created by thoughts that they had previous to that moment, and it could or could not help them in trying to perceive the reality. So people will follow a particular path with the idea that this particular path will help me to still my mind, enable me to meditate deeper, enable me to perceive more clearly what's going on. And it could help. It also could hinder. It could create some difficulty.
Yes.
So what we really, but from the ultimate point of view, it does not matter if you're a householder or you're a monk or a nun. This is not really an indication of your inner state. This is only an indication of your outer state due to karmas, and it could be very helpful for you or it might not be. Advaita says you don't have to be one or the other. In the case of Ramana Maharishi, he was naturally just lived like that. There was no question of, but even in his state, some people would criticize him by saying, well, an ashram grew around you. It's just like a householder with a house.
Interesting. Yeah,
So
good point.
people are always going to have quibbles one way or the other.
Yes.
But he was living up in a cave, and he wouldn't speak for a long time. And he started only to speak when people started to ask him questions. When they asked him questions, that sort of prompted him to speak. And then ultimately he came down from that cave to live at the foothill of that mountain because his mother came to look for him. And when his mother came to look for him, for some reason he allowed himself to be brought down, and then this ashram grew.
Wow.
Which was also good for us today, because the place where you can kind of a history and an inspiration of this teachings brought into reality.
Yes. How could, if I am wrapped up in current affairs and feeling the polarization of society is having a negative effect on me, what is a Advaita Vedanta inspired meditation or way of coming to terms with that sensation? What would you recommend if I'm feeling very just at odds with the things that I see going on in the world? Is there a way to make good with that? And I guess if I'm looking at something that I see as injustice and I feel bad for the being that is experiencing that injustice, I guess from an Advaita Vedanta perspective, in some respects, I could look at it and say, everybody needs to experience what they're experiencing to grow and to maybe work through the karmas. But I guess I still have a hard time watching injustice at the same time. To what level do we socially, do we pull back and do we just watch and just say, look, there's nothing that I need to do because this just needs to happen for some reason that I can't explain? But is there a point where we need to step in and engage in the karma, so to speak? And how does Vedanta address that issue?
Yeah, this is a tough question. I mean, basically, what's going on, by the way, this has been going on basically forever. Okay. But one thing we need to try to feel is empathy and understanding of the suffering of people who are being mistreated in all number of ways. Mistreated is a pretty weak word for a lot of the stuff that goes on in the world. But we need to, Vedanta doesn't say you don't have these feelings. We've got these feelings, but it also says the feelings are to do with your body-mind entity. So always to try to revert back to the realization that I am that consciousness. But the consciousness is manifesting both in the people that are suffering and in the people that are perpetrating that suffering. This is, from both sides.
Yes.
So this is, we got to learn to accept these, or both aspects. And then we've got to see that it's within us, that myself, I also have all these aspects, because if I am that full consciousness, then this manifestation of injustice is part of what I am as well. But Vedanta says that thought is only illusion. You are not. There's no such thing as justice or injustice. But that doesn't help you in the moment, because in the moment you're an individual and you're feeling that this is not right or that's not good. So we do have to act within that because of our perception of where we are. So you might have to do something about that. Doing something about that will help one to not only perhaps ameliorate the situation, but also work out your own karma. You're feeling that so much so that you need to get out there and do something about it.
Yeah, good
So
point.
that's a karmic thing that will happen.
Yeah.
I mean, I was born in South Africa. I lived and grew up in South Africa, where every day in front of my eyes was pretty severe racial injustice. And so, I had to, at certain times, I came across certain situations where I had to choose to do something, right or wrong. So, or from my perception at that time. The problem also so we choose and we do something. What I meant to say by the problem is we never actually know what's right or wrong. It's very difficult to know. And we might do something that we think is helpful and actually it creates more of a problem. So the world is a very complex place. But in the meantime, in order to feel a sense of wholesome doership, we try to do actions that at this time we perceive as being helpful to the society, to the family, to our friends, people around us, the town that we live in, and so on. We definitely need to do something.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Robert. Great answer. I benefit from that. Thank you. Vicki Clark, who was kind enough to introduce me to you, she raved about the teaching that you do with pranayama. Can you elucidate what pranayama is for you, and a little bit or could you also talk a little bit about how, when you first started to engage or practice in pranayama, how has your own practice evolved as you've evolved?
Yeah, it's a super good question, because when I first started this whole yogic path, I just wanted to basically, my main aim at that particular time was to stop my thought process. Just, I thought if I don't think, then everything will be fine. But I realized I couldn't not think. Why? Because my body kept on wanting to move around. If I sat still, it got fidgety, got painful. So I realized, okay, I have to do something about that. So I came across yoga asana, which is very helpful for getting your body to become more comfortable, and also, allow you to sit comfortably for longer periods of time. But still, this idea was to try to stop the thought process, stop things, etc. And then, when I first learned about pranayama exercises, it was also with that idea that if I just did enough of these, everything was going to stop. But that doesn't work because everything goes on.
It's so true, right? We all do the same thing, don't we? It's funny how, yeah, right.
I mean, basically, it took me a long time to realize that what prana is the movement of the entire universe. It's just the universe moving. It doesn't stop. And Vedanta says it's apparently moving, but within the sense of not being in that Advaitic space of awareness, everything is only moving. So then the next thing was, well, how can I work with that movement to try to bring a sense of peacefulness and calm to myself, to my thoughts, to be able to, maintain a good, healthy balance of life, and so on. So the pranayama basically became a way of maintaining more or less equanimity no matter what was going on around me. Very, 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 very difficult. Because, as you know, all things are going to be going. So, and still I had a thought, because in the yogic texts, particularly the Hatha Yoga texts, there's a lot of talk about being able to manipulate and move the prana in a way that it's going to either give you some kind of a spiritual experience, or at least bring you closer to a sense of being, consciousness, and so on. So I was practicing in order to get this type of experience, to have the experience, some kind of higher experience. And still, this would go on and on and on when I realized just doing the practice is what it is. You don't need to get anything out of this. What you need to be able to do is, when you're not doing the practice, to bounce back from things that upset you, shock you, disturb your mind, cause difficulties in your health and things like that. You should be able to recover from those a little bit quicker than you had done in the past. So the practice just became like brushing your teeth. You wake up in the morning and you brush your teeth. So you sit and meditate, so you do some pranayama, so you do some exercises. And then slowly became the realization that your breath is the key to all of this. How you use your breath, you can consciously make big changes in your awareness and in your physical, mental state of being. So over the years, it sort of went from, I want to get here, to basically, I just want to be here.
Yes, amazing. Well, very cool, Robert. I mean, who was the first teacher that you went to help you learn pranayama? Did you do it all through reading a book, or did you come in contact with a teacher who took you through a specific type of pranayama practice? And then on that note, when you practice pranayama now, do you have a structure that you work off of, or do you just simply observe your breath?
Yeah, so currently I use definitely a structure. So I learned initially from Swami Vishnudevananda, who maintained that he had done a lot of pranayama when in his younger years. And then more recently I picked up, and so that was in person. And then more recently I found the teachings of another person, a Swiss person named Reinhard Kammenthaler, who I've not met but have corresponded with, who does a particular type of practice that's pretty intense, and learned a whole lot from that practice as well. And then also came across the You might have heard of Patrick McEwen, the oxygen advantage, or so his teaching and his talks and so on give a whole different aspect. So in the yogic sense, which were the other two teachings, the idea is basically to. Oh, there was also another Indian man who I only met on Zoom who does some pretty intense pranayama practices. So basically the idea is to try to get this prana to move in a way that you want it to move. The Patrick McEwen's thing is really just to how you can use your breath and your breathing to stabilize your nervous system. So what I try to do with what I practice is really just try to stabilize the nervous system as much as possible, with the idea that it should become stable and strong. If by chance one day the prana does move in a direction that the yogic texts maintain it might do so, or it should do so. Along the way, I've gone up and down with my practice, as goes with everything. But I've also seen a few people misuse some of the practices and get into difficulties, physically and emotional difficulties, enough for me to realize that you should never overdo these practices. You should always keep them steady. And two big things about that. One is it's difficult to keep on practicing similar things over a long period of time. That's one thing. It's always easier to get gung-ho and do something too much, and then you're always going to come, boom, back down.
Yes.
So to maintain a steadiness is part of the practice, a regularity and a steadiness. And the other big thing is, what are you doing outside of your practice in your everyday life? If the activities of your everyday life are not conducive to, mental peace and calm, then you're just going to be struggling a lot more, and you're always going to, okay, I'm sitting here practicing and everything's fine, and then I, blow it by doing something creates an imbalance. Yeah.
Or have that question of like, why is nothing working for me? Everybody keeps telling me that this stuff will work, but I don't. That makes perfect sense, Robert. Right. And I also like the idea that you brought attention to the fact that, well, perhaps in the process of learning or taking any practice, whether it's a pranayama practice or a hatha yoga practice, or if I'm going to walk the beach every day practice, that creating one that's moderate that I could potentially maintain and then just keep that going over a longer period of time might reap results or benefits more harmonious than, like you said, just being so excited and gung-ho, like I'm going to walk 100 miles and now I got to walk 100 miles every day. And then 2 days later, we're like, we're done. So that makes sense with pranayama. Amazing. Well, I love hearing all this. I really appreciate your clear and calm way of explaining. And it's obvious to me that you've been contemplating this since your 20s. And I'm just guessing from the math that you told me, 21 in 1971, you're probably maybe in your 70s now. Am I? Okay. Thank you. And so I guess for us folks that are still wanting to live a long, healthy life, and can you offer in our attempt toward closing our conversation, I want to be very respectful of your time, and thank you so much again for niching out time for me. I really, really do appreciate it. I love this opportunity, and I'm enjoying this so much. Is there any other another tidbit of advice for those of us that want to continue to maintain our practice all the way through our life that you've found has been very helpful for you to be able to maintain it in yours?
Yeah. Well, we got to think that one day our body is going to die. We always have this idea that we're going to live forever. currently there's a big movement of people trying to live forever.
True.
But, when our karma for this birth is over, we're going to leave our body. So kind of our life is preparation for that. I always think there are two very important parts of life. One is birth and one is death. In between, we're working out our karma, which we need to accept. We should have a lot of faith in the teachings of sages, saints, and yogis that have come before us because of their the way in which they have made use of their available life in their bodies. And whether we're going to achieve any of the things that they've said they've achieved is immaterial. We should just simply have faith. Very important thing to have. We shouldn't have blind faith. Blind faith will just create more illusion and things, because in order not to have blind faith, we need to practice ourselves, and every now and then we'll get a little spark, a little bit of clarity, a little bit of understanding, a little bit of more awareness that yes, this is correct, this is good, this is what I should be doing. In the meantime, we need to really work on our karmic relationships with other people, because that's what we came here on the earth plane to do. So that's a lot of different things. It's important to have regular sleep, to be moderate in your diet, to take care of your responsibilities as well as you can, and to allot yourself some time every day where you do your practice. Like I like to get up early and be by myself for a few hours. And then before I go to sleep at night, try to do something that sort of closes the day so that sleep can be good and deep. So it's just like birth and death of each individual day. We've got to wake up.
Yes.
And then be quiet. But basically,
yeah,
have faith.
I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you sharing all this. And I like that at the start of our conversation, when you made reference to the different states of consciousness that we experience, being awake, being in a dream state, and then that state where we're not here. And where do we go? That's always a fascinating thing to me. I always love contemplating that. I agree, Robert. It's incredible. Well, I am grateful for people like you that was inspired at a young age, and you sought and learn and are now teaching and sharing, and people can contact you on your website, namarupa.org, and you teach regularly via Zoom. So anyone that's interested, I enjoyed hearing you, can reach out to you very easily. And I have those links in the description. And I just want to again say thank you for being generous with your time and for sharing with us. And it really is a pleasure. And I was looking forward to this greatly after I got a chance to hear about you and look at your work. I'm very honored to have this opportunity. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Very nice talking to you.
Thank you, Robert.
I had looked through all your Toddcasts. You've done a lot of people. That's really awesome.
Thank you, Robert. I know it's starting to feel a little bit like well, it's people like you that are making it special. Every single person I've had a chance to talk to, I feel like what a gift. I get to learn. I get to learn from you today. And you made it accessible. You made it very friendly and accessible, and that's huge. I think that stands the test of when I look and see the injustices that I have a hard time viewing. People like you that are willing to share your time and teach generously like this is where it helps to balance all that out. So thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, my sincere thanks to Robert Moses for sharing such depth and clarity around Advaita Vedanta. If you're interested in continuing your study or learning more about Namarupa, you can visit namarupa.org, where you'll find essays and resources dedicated to Indian philosophical traditions. Thank you for listening to Native Yoga Toddcast. If this episode supported your inquiry or practice, please consider sharing it with a friend, leaving a review, subscribing to our YouTube channel at Native Yoga, sending us an email, info@Native Yoga Center, visiting our website, nativeyogacenter.com, and or just continue listening, enjoying. My goal at this show is to help inspire you to deepen your practice, to continue to practice, and to share the merits and benefits of your practice with the global community. All right. I hope you enjoyed. See you next time. Native Yoga Toddcast is produced by myself. The theme music is dreamed up by Bryce Allen. If you like this show, let me know. If there's room for improvement, I want to hear that too. We are curious to know what you think and what you want more of, what I can improve. And if you have ideas for future guests or topics, please send us your thoughts to info@Native Yoga Center. You can find us at nativeyogacenter.com. And hey, if you did like this episode, share it with your friends, rate it and review, and join us next time.